Jesus, congratulations on this. It's like a comedy documentary about your life by AARP. So hey, congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's an exciting time. The good people over at AARP Studios, made this great documentary. And I say great, I'm a little biased. I'm the subject of it along with my folks. But yeah, it was a Care to Laugh, a documentary that follows my journey as a stand-up comic. As it also follows the journey of me being a caregiver to my parents. So, some laughs, some tears, a little bit of everything. But it was quite the experience.
Hey, so tell me how they approached you for this documentary, and why did you want to do it?
Yeah, so Care to Laugh came about, I think 4 years ago now. They did they had done a research. They were doing research with Google and a study with Google, and they wanted to find out what caregivers wanted. And what the results of that research came back was that they wanted, caregivers needed time and laughter. So they came up with this idea to do Care to Laugh, which was an event over at the Hollywood Improv. And they brought caregivers and caregivees for a night of laughs and a nice dinner. And I was on the bill. Headlining that night was Jim Brewer, and I was opening the show. And that's how I met, AARP Studios. And sometime later, they reached out that they wanted to do a similar event in New York. And I told them, unfortunately, I couldn't go because of my father's health. And then that's when they reached out and asked, how my family and I would feel about, doing a documentary. And they were going to follow us for a year. And, I had that conversation with my parents, and, they agreed to it. And here we are. Care to Laugh now streaming.
I'm actually surprised that that your parents agreed to do the documentary, because it seems like they were somewhat supportive of your comedic career.
Yes, somewhat. It took a lot of work to get to them, to get my parents to be somewhat supportive. It did take a conversation. They weren't like on board 100% for the documentary. And, I didn't push them on it. I just said, hey, just think about it. Let me know what you think. And, they agreed. And, this documentary definitely captures how my parents don't really know what I do, as far as comedy. It's a concept very hard for them to grasp. My parents are from Mexico, so it's always very hard for like, my parents is like, usually the first generation deals with like the struggle of getting your parents to understand, your dreams. And in my case, it's like a career in the arts. So that's always tough. And yeah, so they're very supportive. In the documentary, you see how over time they've become more and more supportive. But yeah, it was a challenge. And, after the fact, I talked to my parents even today about the documentary, and they're happy that, we did it.
Did they have a chance to watch the documentary yet so far? They're probably your strongest critic, right?
They are my strongest critics. They did get a chance to see it. Actually, they saw it at a screening that they did in Hermosa Beach. And it was very funny because my parents, when we went in, they didn't want to sit in the front of like the theater space. They wanted to sit in the back. And I remember asking my dad, like, why sit in the back? He's like, well, I want to see people. I want to see the reaction. I want to see how many people walk out. I said, no one's going to walk out, Dad. But, they went, they were very happy. And, they enjoyed seeing it on the big screen, for them to kind of see the process of filming it, and then seeing it on the big screen and seeing people, laugh and enjoy the film.
Excellent. So tell us why you wanted to be a comedian in the first place, because it doesn't seem like your parents actually raised you this way.
No, they did not. Why I wanted to become a comedian, I think it's just a dream that I had from a very young age. And, there's something like really cool about, bringing laughter to people. And it's something that, I don't know if it was a calling or what it was. It's just something that I was very, very much enamored with from a very young age, from like initially, growing up on Mexican comedians, because, my first language was Spanish. So my parents would introduce me to, comedians like, Cantinflas, El Chavo, India Maria. And then as I started, getting full command of the language, I started diving into, American comedians, and silent film. I was a big fan of that. And then later it became stand up. But it's very interesting because my parents, they always said, it's like, we sacrificed so much. We wanted you to have like a corporate job, something you can wear a tie to. And to this day, when my parents bring up, it's like, remember that job you had where you wore a tie? I'm like, I sold kids clothes at Robinson's May. He's like, but you wore a tie. They always refer to that. But, bringing it back around, it's like to be able to provide for my parents and helping my parents age gracefully through my art. I mean, is a feeling second to none. I mean, I wouldn't have it any other way. And it took some hard work. And I think because of that, it gave me a sense of urgency to work hard and, make sure that my parents were taken care of. And I also was able to live my dream of being a stand-up comedian.
I love your jokes because some of your jokes are a little bit self-deprecating, but you also put in your parents into a lot of your jokes. Do you put it in your parents into your jokes is because you're just basically showing your love and affection for them all these years?
That's a great question. I think there's a couple things that happen there. In stand-up comedy, the rule of thumb is you talk about what you know. And, being a caregiver for so many years from such a young age, I talk about what I know. And it's, my parents and, I'm 33 years old, still living at home. I never moved out. It was mainly because of, me taking care of my parents. So I talk about that experience. And also, I think it's like my way of paying homage, to my parents. I love my parents so much, and they are a big part of my life. And, I talk about my experience as a caregiver. A lot of it is self-deprecating. And I talk about my experiences, which, much like the documentary and the jokes that I write about, is like, I hope people can relate to it. It's when somebody, like when you see a film or you see a show, one of two things happen. You either relate to it or you're drawn into it. And I think if I just talk to, my truth and I speak my truth, I think people will either relate or hopefully they're drawn to it.
Yeah, I believe that's a huge success for comedy. But I also want to note that like the last third of the documentary was talking about, it was your journey to be on James Corden. Hundreds of comedians would have loved to be in the same shoes as you. Do you think that you consider yourself successful now or just incredibly lucky?
Yeah, I don't know that I ever kind of, like like feed into the idea of like being successful. It's like every day is a grind, and I've been very lucky to have some really cool projects and things come about, but it's always a struggle. I don't know, for me personally, I don't feel that there's ever like a legitimate success. And maybe it's because I'm so close to the work and I'm hustling, taking care of my parents and working hard and, making sure that the next project comes out well. I always have a bunch of projects and, on the stove, different pots going. So, I mean, I consider myself lucky and just grateful that I'm able to, again, provide for my parents, help them age gracefully.
So what is the measure of success in your eyes for your own career?
The measure of success is being able to care for my loved ones. Is like the moment I was able to do that, I guess there was a feeling of making it. It's like, oh, if I'm able to take care of my parents and, provide a roof over my parents, and, they're well fed and, whatever they need, they're able to have, is like, for me, it's like, I'm low maintenance. I require very little. So it's like, I think that's the measure of success. If I can continue to provide for my parents through my art, I mean, that to me is true success. Everything else is extra, I guess.
Of course, this documentary was filmed quite some time ago, and people are going to watch it and wonder, are you still living with your parents today? And
Absolutely, yeah. Still living at home, especially during, times like this. It's like, with the COVID of it all, it's challenges, like challenges still come up. It's like, I'm trying to keep my parents indoors and safe and, wearing the mask, washing our hands. I'm singing happy birthday to my mom to make sure she washes her hands for the right amount of time, they tell you. Yeah, it's an ongoing effort. And, especially during this time, I'm trying to, like, I really feel like the parent right now. Like my mom's like, can I go outside? Like, you can't go outside. He's like, can I just go out here? I'm like, all right, stay where I could see you because I don't want you to get sick, you know?
I think one of the things that the documentary actually brought up was sort of like your love life. I mean, how are you going to adjust in the future to basically bring in a love life or start your own family? You know, that was a big question, and I think I felt like it kind of left that unanswered for now because you are taking care of your parents and your career.
Yeah, I mean, those things are challenging. I mean, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, we cross that bridge when, you know, when we get there. And, you know, for any caregivers out there, it's like they know that that's definitely a challenge in the day-to-day life. It's like, you know, you take care of your parents, you know, I was dating at the time, you know, my girlfriend at the time you saw in a documentary, and it's like I'm dating now, but it is a challenge. I mean, it definitely is a challenge, and it's like I don't have a clear answer for that. I think time will tell. And you know, as far as kids, I feel like I already have my two kids. You know, it's like I don't know if I'm going to have kids in the future. I feel like I definitely, you know, have spent my time, you know, raising my kids, aka my parents. So yeah, that is a challenge, and that's you know, one of those things that, you know, I don't know what the future holds, but you know, I keep an open mind to it.
And just to clarify, even though your parents were sick throughout the entire documentary, they are actually fine today, right?
They're good. I mean, I wouldn't say they're 100%. You know, you find what the new baseline is going to be. You know, after my mom's surgery, when she got the tumor taken out, her new 100% may be 60%. You know, and that's kind of what I measure everything by. My dad had uh, a follow up with the doctor, and you know, I had a checkup. You know, is it now like 4 years after the thing? I forget what it was, but basically we went in, and a couple of weeks ago the doctor said, "Hey, you're free and clear. No signs of cancer. I'll see you in 5 years." So I mean, those pieces of good news are great, because sometimes, as you know, you go to the doctor, you don't hear good news all too often, especially, you know, in the demographic that my parents are in. You know, is that they're older and there's a lot to deal with there. But the fact that, you know, we got that great piece of news 2 weeks ago, it's like phenomenal.
That is certainly happy news. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I want to bring up one more thought because of
Hmm.
the crazy times that we actually have right now. How are you staying creative, and don't you miss oper- performing in front of a crowd?
Oh man, yeah, yeah, no, crazy times. And I'm trying to stay creative. I'm currently, you know, in pre-production. We're producing this web series called Tacos con Todo, which is on First We Feast. And you know, it's a second season, and that had to be different. You know, we couldn't be in the field anymore, and also there's that risk of me being, you know, exposed possibly to COVID and bringing that home. So it's like we're filming that in such a way that, you know, it's in a safe manner. The production team filming it, it's very lean. But I'm just trying to stay creative. I'm writing. I'm you know, getting ready for when things open up. But I mean, I do miss getting on stage. I was able to do a tour a few months back with Bert Kreischer opening up the drive-in movie theaters, and it was all safe and done very well, I thought. But it still isn't the same as, you know, being in a club. I do miss that quite a bit, and I don't know when, you know, the clubs will open back up. And I mean, I miss it, but until then, you know, we just stay busy writing and creating jokes at home.
Excellent. Hey, thank you very much, Jesus. Hey, I thought that was a very emotional and touching documentary about your life. I believe a lot of people can actually relate, and you're one of the most down to earth comedians out there.
You're very kind. Thank you so much for your time. And yeah, 1 in 5 Americans are caregivers. They're either taking care of an older family member or you know, a kid with special needs. And there are resources out there. People could go check out these resources at aarp.org. And also, if you want to know more details about the documentary Care to Laugh, aarp.org/care to laugh. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you, Jesus, and hopefully we get to do this again under a different circumstance.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate you, sending you a big hug.
Hey, thank you. Bye now.
Bye bye.